Hi, guys, and welcome to this week's episode of Autism Journeys radio show. I'm absolutely delighted to have the lovely Faye Hayden, author of United We Play, on the show with me today. Hi, Faye, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hi, Sharon. You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Perfect. Faye, I suppose we're here today to talk about your wonderful book, the United We Play book that you have recently published in order to raise funds. I'm not going to say any more than that. And I suppose I'm going to get you, before we even start talking about that, I'm just going to get you to put yourself in context for my listeners today. You might share a little bit about yourself and your experiences with autism.
Well, of course, yeah, absolutely. You'll gather from my accent, I'm not local. So I grew up in North Wales and moved to County Leitrim with my job nearly 20 years ago. And I was only meant to be here 2 years, but my husband and the rest is history, as they say. And I'm here, and now the whole family joined. As mum and dad came over 5 years ago too, and we have three gorgeous children. And my middle child, my only son Patrick, he was diagnosed as being autistic 3 years ago. He's now 12. But I'd been involved with autism for quite a while before that. I got involved running a Freuga youth club for autistic teenagers back in 2015. And that's now become an autistic adult social club, which
Fab.
focuses very much on the arts. And we have a teenage autistic club and now a tween autistic club. I started that one so that my son would have an outlet with his friends. So quite a lot of involvement, and I've learned, like all of us, learned more and more every day.
Perfect. Faye, can I ask you, why did you decide to author this book particularly, first and foremost?
I'd been thinking for a while that I wanted to talk about inclusion and how we exclude people so often without even realizing that we're doing it. I mean, everybody have always had that birthday party experience, or just so many different experiences, and we don't realize how much we're excluding people and how capacity is assumed. That so many times people with disabled children of any kind of disability will think, oh, they can't do that because they're in a wheelchair, or they can't do that because they're autistic. So it's about saying actually no, and getting those conversations started, stopping the situations where parents are going, oh no, don't look at the child over there in the
Yeah.
wheelchair, to let's go over and say hi to the child in the wheelchair, or let's go over and see, can I help the mum whose child is having a meltdown, can I watch her handbag, can I stand with her other children, and just getting those conversations started, trying to remove that fear factor that exists for so many people that don't have a neurodiverse child, or that don't have a child with a physical disability. Because I think a lot of the time it's not intentional that people mean to exclude, or people mean no harm, they just don't know how to interact.
Yeah.
So the book is about teaching them how to interact from an early age. The book is as much about teaching the grown-ups as it is about teaching the
Yeah.
children.
Absolutely. So I suppose obviously you've stated that it's around inclusion and so on. What kinds of disability or conditions are included in the book?
We have a variety of different disabilities, but this is hopefully just start of things. I'm already working on volume 2, and we have plans for volume 3, 4, 5, and beyond, because we want to make sure we can explain as many as possible. So in this book, I tended to go with people that I knew, because I wanted to kind of know the children a little bit, so I could write honestly about them and their interests and their stories. And then I approached a few people that kind of with disabilities that I knew were out and about, and a few
Yeah.
bloggers and people that made contact with over the years. As you do, you build that tribe of people.
Yeah.
So we have a little girl with dwarfism. We have a little girl who is deaf and she has a clear implant. We have a little girl who's from down in Cork, Kirsty, who is autistic,
That's
but also
right.
has a general learning disability as well. Gorgeous Kirsty. I've never actually met her, but I feel like I know her because I know Elaine so well, and we were on
Yeah.
the radio together early this year, and she always makes me smile with the energy in her posts and her
Yeah.
stripy pajamas. We all know Kirsty stripy
Yeah.
pajamas.
Yeah.
Then we have Riley as well, gorgeous. I do call him Smiley Riley, from down in Cork as well. He's from the My Boy Blue blog. He's autistic. And then we also have my own son Patrick is in it. He's autistic. Although I don't focus as much on the autism with Patrick, I focus a bit more on the fact he has ADHD.
Yeah.
So I suppose it was kind of looking at the differences that can occur within autism,
Yeah.
and the different profiles and the different presentations. Like my son suffers quite severely from anxiety.
Yeah.
Then also in the book we have cerebral palsy, And Dory that has cerebral palsy has a mild learning disability as well.
Okay.
We also then have Down syndrome,
Yeah.
and we have Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy,
Yeah.
which is more, I suppose, the focal point of the book,
Yeah.
because all of the money that's raised from this book is to go for 3 young boys who are brothers, Archie, who's 14, and then identical twins, George and Isaac, who are 10. And they all 3 of them sadly suffer from Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy, which
Yeah.
is their mum, Paula, who is the most amazing woman you would ever meet. She described it as a catastrophic condition, which it
Yeah.
is. They've all been in lockdown since the 4th of March,
Yeah.
and it's not showing any signs of letting up for them, because
Yeah.
unfortunately, although the boys are in wheelchairs, it does affect their organs as well. They have poor function, poor I can't speak respiratory function, so
Yeah.
she has to be, the parents have to be super careful with the boys. So,
Okay.
and they're just, I don't know if it's reached Cork, but we used to do the Orange Days locally, because they live local to us in Roscommon, and everybody would wear orange for the day at school, and you would make a donation. And I remember the letter coming home from school with my daughter a few years ago, and I just sat on my kitchen table and cried. Just the absolute devastation that family must have experienced in that 10 minutes, finding out in the doctor's room that all 3 of your children were going to suffer with this condition.
Yeah.
And I knew then I just had to do something.
Yeah.
And I started writing last year, really, for my own mental health. I was struggling quite a lot, and my GP had recommended me just put it down on paper. And I started writing, and a few scribbles actually then very quickly became 50,000 words.
Wow.
So I decided I had to do something with it. Yeah. So I changed it. I talk a lot, and I do that on paper as well. So I created a blog, bedtime stories for mothers and others, and then a book of the same name. And I thought, right, then I went on a writing course, and we did a creative writing thing, and I did rhyming couplets, and I love writing rhyming couplets. Ever since the kids were small, I've made up silly songs and rhymes, and I've always enjoyed doing that. And been reasonably good at it. So I thought, right, this is what I'm going to do. So I was in contact with Paula. She loved the idea, and just, it seemed to tick 2 really important boxes for me. So I could talk about inclusion and do something to try and help this family. So that was a really big thing for me. What we decided is now the future books, every volume of the book will go to support a different family with a different disability. There's 2 twins that were going to be in this book, but they're now going to be in the next book that needs some fundraising for their nursing care, and they have something called Fayes syndrome. So the next book is going to be for those boys. And then, we really want to meet as many young people as possible. And, I say meet over Zoom or whatever, so that we want them to be included in the book, because the most important thing is that children can identify with these children, that they can be like, oh, that child actually looks like me. But also that children in the class can see a real person, that it isn't just a drawing, that it isn't just an abstract idea, it's actually a real person that they can identify with. And that's really, really important.
Yeah, now I have 2 questions out of that. I suppose the first is, I know that you've mentioned a number of different disabilities or conditions that people are most likely very familiar with, like that cochlear implant or Down syndrome or autism and ADHD and so on. I suppose I'm mindful of the fact that people may not know what, I can't pronounce the word now, Duchenne muscular dystrophy is. So I suppose that's the first question. And then the second question is that should anybody actually want to potentially contribute to any further volumes, is there a way in which they can do that? So 2-pronged question for you.
Definitely, yeah. And the first thing I'm going to say is I missed opposition defiance disorder in there as well. I can't miss out Callum. He's absolutely gorgeous, so that's in the book as well. But Duchenne it's a degenerative condition, so it affects the muscles, and it basically starts in the toes and it works its way up the body. So the way I explain it in the book is that a lot of the time the boys' muscles will just get tired, but they get so tired that they get to a point that they don't function anymore. So Archie became a wheelchair user when he was 12, but the twins became wheelchair users when they were 8.
Okay.
And they will lose that function bit by bit. So their needs will constantly change, constantly evolve. Unfortunately, the average life expectancy with Duchenne is only 26. As well, I will say that's an average. Sometimes it can be much older than that, but unfortunately, a lot of the time also much younger. So they have the money that they need to build a house for the boys, but they don't have the money that they need to kit it out.
Okay.
And I was over at their house recently. We had tea in the garden. We had autumn tea in the garden with a few blankets, because I can't go inside obviously with the boys.
Yeah.
But they are tripping over all of their equipment. They live in a 2-story house. They need a bungalow. And so they need a lot of equipment, and the boys are absolutely amazing. Archie is a typical teenager. He loves his rugby. He's training to be a rugby coach at the moment.
Fab.
He plays wheelchair basketball. He wants to be a DJ, so he's learning all about those kind of things. The two younger boys like soccer and reading, and they want to live their best life.
Yeah.
And this is about trying to get enough money that they can be comfortable and enjoy the lives that they have. And
Fab.
they are so focused on doing that. Do you know what? They could teach the rest of us a thing or two. They really, really would. They're amazing young boys and such lovely, engaging children.
Good.
And in terms of buying the book, we're looking for an Irish supplier at the moment, but it can be bought online. So if you go onto their website, it's www.joinourboys.org. You can go on to buy the book, which is €10. All of the profits from the book go directly to the Join Our Boys Trust, because everybody that's been involved in this book has volunteered their time. So every penny, not every penny that you spend in it, because obviously there's the cost of it, but every penny of profit will go to them.
Perfect.
And their website is full of different ways to donate. They're doing a pause for the boys on November the 1st. So they're having a competition for prettiest pooches out there. So I'm sure Milo and Willow actually makes an appearance in the book, Riley's autism service dog. So I'm sure they'll be up there for the crown, because they're both gorgeous. But and it's just a walk, run or roll of 5 kilometers on the 1st of November, and posting pictures. And I have to be honest, we have a German Shepherd, Heidi, who is absolutely stunning, but there are some real contenders that might even beat Heidi on the page at the moment, because there's some gorgeous dogs out there.
Fab. Fab. Well, I'll make sure to share all contact details with this recording. So anybody that does want to get involved or or donate or whatever will have access to the website directly. I suppose the other question I was asking was, should anybody want to potentially contribute to the volume 2 or 3 or 4 or 5? Will that be will that be possible, or do you have a very kind of a set mix of people already organised?
No, not at all. I have 6 participants for the next book, and that includes a young girl who has who's autistic with the pathological demand avoidance profile. But I'm very keen to because I have such an affinity with autism, and I'm very keen to get as much education about there as possible. So people that have, we haven't had anybody in the book who has maybe more severe autism, and I want people to be able to engage. So it might not be volume 2, but maybe in volume 3, there's definitely scope for people that have other disabilities. I don't know all the disabilities out there. I've recently encountered somebody with EDS, the Danos syndrome, I think it's called. And, we have a girl with albinism who has visual impairments, epilepsy, so many different ones. But we really want to hear from people. We have an email address, which is unitedweplay1@gmail.com.
Perfect.
An email, mate. That's also for if you know any local bookshops that want to order the book. We've had a few contact us to say, can you send us 20 copies, and we can order them directly. And also schools, because we really, really want to get this into schools.
Cool.
We were on Ray Darcy's radio show a few weeks ago, and he said this is a book that every school and household should have.
Yeah.
And it's really important for us to get this into schools. And we're hoping to pull together something that will help, like a teaching guide for how inclusion can actually be achieved, but using the words of the people that are in the book, that I would like to do this, you can do that, because nothing about us without us. It's really important that the voices of all the young people in this book are heard.
Yeah.
And nobody better to tell us about autism than autistic people. They really are the experts.
Yeah.
So that's how you can get in touch with us, or if you want more information about the book or anything at all, you can get us through that email address.
Perfect. And as I say, I'll share all of that contact information. I suppose I've been privy, I've seen the book, I've read it, and there are the most beautiful small people contributing, the most beautiful youngsters contributing. I love the honesty. I love the way in which they're sharing their information. And actually, one of my favorite pieces is, well, actually, I like, we'd say beans on toast. All right. Now I can't remember a specific, but it's not just Like there's not just this focus on their condition, that it focuses on them in their entire
Absolutely.
wonderful sense of, you know, well, I'm a little girl who likes getting dressed up, or I'm a little boy who likes kicking a football around. I think it really honors the space that the young person comes from. But I suppose, will you tell me then in that, I know that your daughter, Erin, is the oh jeepers, what's the storyteller, for lack of a better word, the narrator. So will you tell me a little bit about her and the other small people then, I suppose, in the book?
Yep, absolutely. Erin is my youngest daughter. She's 7. She's Patrick's youngest sister, and she is. We always say we misnamed this child. We should have called her Joy. She is our own little piece of sunshine living in the house, and I think her picture says it all in the book. Just the look on her face, and you can see the mischief in her eye. So she tells the story.
Yeah.
The book is actually inspired by a poem by Maya Angelou called Human Family, which is very much about saying we're all different, but we're actually really just the same. And that's very much what we wanted to get across in the book. Talk a little bit about the person's condition, talk about the things that might be different, that they might use a wheelchair, that they might not speak as much, that they might communicate with a machine. Talk about that, but talk about the things that they really enjoy doing, which are no different to any child and any grown-up, really, because if you think play unites us all, if you look at sport, you look at gaming, play is a huge part of what we do as children and adults. The children involved, the people that I know, the people that I feel like I've engaged with through various blogs and through the various communities that kind of come about. Matthew, for example, the little boy with Down syndrome, he went to play school with Erin. Cara is a friend of Patrick's. They go to the youth club together, because the youth club is the tweed youth club that I run, is for children with all sorts of different needs. Elaine I met through Darcy. Nicole and I connected kind of online through her blog. This is going to make me feel really old now, but Maggie, the little girl in it, that she's actually from Wales, which is where I grew up, and her mum I used to babysit for.
Okay.
So, and so it always makes me feel really old. And I'm like, oh, the child I used to babysit for, children of her own. But so that's how I know Maggie. The 2 boys, George and Isaac, I've never physically met them until very recently. Even their mum, I'd just communicated with her over Facebook, knew their story. But as soon as I met their mum, we just clicked, and I'd say we'll be friends for a very long time. And she's very much involved with the promotion of the book, and she's very much involved in the promotion of inclusion. And she would have been way before her boy's diagnosis. Good. It's not just about her boys, that's just the person that she is. So, and yeah, there's just so many different people in the book. Luna, the little girl with dwarfism, her mum works with my husband. And then Dee, Callum's mum, who has oppositional defiance disorder, I wrote a poem that I put up on my blog earlier on in the year after a bad incident, a difficult incident that Patrick had, called Having the Crack, where he'd smashed up some stuff and the breaking glass. And it was just a piece that I wrote. One of the things in my own writing is I'm very honest about the things that go on. And I think that's really important, because Patrick has a really hard time, and he has pathological demand avoidance, he has ADHD, he has oppositional defiance disorder, and he suffers from severe anxiety. And a lot of the time that comes out as what we would call challenging behaviour. And I think what's really important to remember is the most challenging part of it is it's challenging for him, is how much he is suffering as a result of it. And it impacts us all. We all know that, but we need to never forget just how challenging it is the person that's actually experiencing it at that time. And I wrote a piece, and Callum's got in touch with me to just say that parts of it resonated with her. And again, she's part of my tribe now. We just made contact. We've only met once, but it was, sorry, this is not very COVID friendly, but big hug. We had to just connected. And I think so many of us have really good friends online that we might never have even met, or have only met once, twice. So I have a connection to everybody in the book in that way. And as I said, I felt it was really important, because then I could really reflect the child, that I wasn't just making stuff up. I could reflect every single child in the book. And that is one thing, if we are inviting people to participate in the next book, what we do hope for is that I'll be able to interview the child online, have a chat with them. I don't want it to be secondhand information from the parent. I want to get a sense of the child. Obviously there may be some circumstances, if the child is non-verbal, that they may need the parent to communicate as well. But I want a real sense of each child and who they are, not just about their disability.
Fantastic, fantastic. I'm actually very excited for the next the volume 2 plus 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, wherever it ends. Can I ask you, Faye, will you tell me a little bit about the people that you actually collaborated on then? I know that you had an autistic gentleman do the illustration and so on. So can you tell me about that side of the book, please?
I can, yeah. Ryan Foraker was one of my original youth club members, and he's always had a really good eye for art and a good talent. We worked on an animation project a few years ago with Leitrim County Council, and they sent artists and animated them with us, and we did a project on litter reduction, and that went. We made a DVD and this animation. It went all around the schools, and that was fantastic. And Ryan really led the way on that, to be fair. So I knew when I was doing this, he was going to be the right person. And I told him everything that was going on. I sent him pictures of the children. I sent him drafts of the book at that stage. And he went away and he did all the artwork then from there, volunteered his time completely free. I'm working on another book at the moment, the Shoebox Appeal, and he's doing all the illustrations on that for free as well. And he's so dedicated and so committed. And so he's done all of that work. Yeah. And then we did have the lady that edited it for me. She's a local school teacher and a local musician. She'd be very much involved in the arts. Nuala Maxwell, she's fantastic. And then Karen Brown, Karen is fantastic. She's actually a life coach, and her son was in school with my daughter, but she homeschools now. And when I was just kind of testing the water on my blog last year and just posting a few things on my personal page, she got in touch with me to say, I want to help you set up a website. She's one of those real giving people, and she had this skill and she helped me get everything up and running. You know, she makes everything happen because you do all this work and you have all of this paper and all of this stuff, but she makes it into something. And she's fantastic. That's Coach Karen Brown. She's really, really good at that. She does a lot of work on publishing and things like that. So she's pulled it all together. And then we had some illustrations as well from children in local school. Patrick doesn't go there now. He's now homeschooled. Where he did go and where Erin goes. I just ran a small competition during lockdown, just for some art to put in the book, because again, I wanted it to be art that children can connect with, because this book is for children. And I just think as soon as I got the pictures back in, there's such joy and there's such engagement with those kind of pictures. You know, I'm 44 now, and I go in my mum's wardrobe and she still has a box for my old school reports and bits of art that I did when I was a child. And, you know, it's still just really nice to see that. And it is such an emotional kind of feeling that you get when you see that kind of art, because you know so much effort has gone into it. And we wanted to include that. And we're hoping to run a more national competition next time for art to go into future books. And Archie, George and Isaac will be the judges. They will choose what goes into the next books. So because they're still we want them to maintain the connection. And it's great for them as well, because they are stuck at home and they are quite bored as much as they're doing their homeschooling, but it's great they get to get involved with the different things like this. So we're hoping that they can choose some. The hard part is choosing what goes in which book.
Absolutely, I can only imagine. Do you know? I suppose I'm mindful too, Faye, that I know you've said, like that you said just now, that this book is for children. But I suppose I feel that it's really important to state that this book is a book that will educate young and old, that it is a book that will meet support understanding for not only small people, or not only those children who may look at it and see like it may have a child with a particular condition in their class, but actually it will definitely support the understanding of adults who perhaps don't quite understand what these conditions mean as well.
Most definitely. And that was as much my goal as it was for making this a children's book. And the poems themselves, as you go through the book, will tell you a little bit about the condition. But if you go to the back of the book, there's a lot more about each condition.
Absolutely.
And how it impacts that person and what that actually means. And one of the things, for example, is when I talk about Riley, that he doesn't speak as much as maybe most 7-year-olds do. But that does not mean he doesn't have anything to say. And that certainly does not mean he can't hear what you say about him. And it's getting these really important messages out there. And I think this is what a lot of adults forget. And it's written in a child-friendly way, but it's also written in an adult-friendly way that hopefully adults will embrace that information.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, yourself, you become so bogged down in the jargon of a particular condition, and
Absolutely.
you'll be talking about it. My friend's eyes glaze over when I start talking about CAMs and
I'm the
SEND
same.
and IEPs. Yeah, and they're kind of looking at me as if to go, what is she talking about? And I actually wrote a chapter about this in my grown-up book about the language that comes with it. And WTF quite often appears in there as well,
Yeah.
and FS. But obviously we know what those mean. But yeah, it's just making sure that the language that is used isn't restrictive for people
Yeah.
understanding, and it kind of gives practical ideas in the sense of people need to take up the fact that I shouldn't say something inappropriate around this child, or I shouldn't say something about this child that doesn't speak,
Yeah.
because that doesn't mean they can't understand what I'm saying, and it doesn't mean I shouldn't make the effort to listen to what they've got to say. And you know, we have a young boy that comes to one of my youth clubs who has Down syndrome, and his speech is harder to understand, and I have to stop and I have to make sure I'm really concentrating on what he's saying, and it might take me a little bit longer to process, but it's just making that little bit of effort.
Yeah.
And that's all this book is asking people to do. And we spoke on a local radio station there during the week, and I said about a birthday party that Patrick had invited to earlier on this year, and the mum phoned me up and she said, okay, so we're having it in this place and that might get a bit noisy for Patrick, so there's this part of it that we can take him into, and there's we can go if he really needs a quiet space. And I came off the phone and I cried,
Yeah.
because I was so delighted to made that little bit of extra effort, 5-10 minutes to sit down and figure out a plan so that Patrick could be included.
Yeah.
And that's all it takes. That's all we're asking. We're not asking for days and weeks and months of planning. We're just asking for 5 or 10 minutes of sitting down and going, how can we make this work?
Yeah.
And that is just so important.
Yeah, it's showing kindness, really, isn't it, Faye? Just showing kindness always.
It is. And you
know,
what a fantastic lesson to teach our children, to sit down with our children and say, right, how can we have a party that George and Isaac can come to? How can we have a party that Luna can be involved in? What can we do to make sure all your friends are included?
Yeah.
And there's no better lesson to teach our children.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tell me, Faye, when can we expect volume 2? Is it? I know it's in the works now at the moment, but when do you envisage it being available?
Hopefully not too long after Christmas.
Okay.
We're going to give this one time to kind of run for a while, and then hopefully after Christmas. So I started college. I'm hoping to go into advocacy, and I'm just started college, so I do have assignments and things to be done.
Yeah.
But to be honest, this is going to sound, the writing of the poems is quite straightforward, because I love doing it, but it's the fine tuning that goes into kind of getting the book together. This book actually took a year to put together, believe it or not, but it won't take that long next time, because we know kind of what we're doing, and obviously we had lockdown and everything in the middle of it. But we're aiming for after Christmas, and I'd like to have between 10 and 12 participants in the book, so I need 6 more. But just if people get in contact with me, just because you're not in book 2 doesn't mean you won't be in book 3 or in book 4.
Exactly.
We obviously can't have everybody, but what I really want to try and do is have girls and boys with each of the different conditions, so different people can resonate with different people. And also to have the book, the very little racial diversity in this book. Callum his dad is Pakistan, so he's mixed race, but other than that there isn't any real racial diversity. So I would love to have more children of colour in the book, children from the travelling community in the book. We want as much diversity in there as possible. We really, really do. So I would encourage anybody to get in touch.
Perfect, perfect. So I suppose, will you just tell me again how people can get in touch with you and how people can find out more about this and other projects to follow?
The way to get in touch with us is unitedweplay1@gmail.com.
Perfect.
And I will reply as quickly as possible. If I don't reply straight away, you all know yourselves what this crazy life is like at times. And I am actually having surgery next week, so I'll probably be not in. I might send you all sorts of strange emails if I try to open my email then. So if you are contacting me in the next weeks, it might be a couple of weeks before I reply, but I will reply. And then in terms of the book, if you want to find out more information about Join Our Boys, which is the trust that's set up to support Archie, George and Isaac, that is www.joinourboys.org. And there's a link on the front page which takes you to the book.
Perfect. And I suppose just to let people know too, No, just that if people want to, I know some people don't tend to use screen readers, just around accessibility and so on, that actually people can purchase not just a physical copy, but actually an electronic copy via Kindle, the Kindle app or Kindle store as well, so that so should anybody want to access it in that way, that's perfectly available as well.
Absolutely, yeah, it's up on Kindle. It's all exactly the same on Kindle. And if there are any local bookshops, local gift shops, they can get in touch with us via unitedweplay1@gmail.com as well.
Perfect.
If they want to start the book. We've been doing that, and we can just get books sent out directly to people.
That's fantastic. Faye, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.